Hi everybody, this is Scott Joris again, and this is another episode of The Wolf and the Neural Network. This episode we're going to talk about the consistency in my actions, because I did talk about my strategy. Now it's time to talk about some of the Easter eggs that were left, so that at a moment like this I could have a rational discussion with the public and show them exactly how consistent I was and how predictable the violent delusional predator Kristen Holm was. Right? Like how she could absolutely be anticipated and was anticipated, right? And that it never mattered about facts, evidence, or human decency. She was always going to lie, cheat, steal, and blame somebody else while she pretended she was the hero, right? I'm going to give you like a solid example of how consistent I am because I am one of the best in the world. I am a professional. She is not, and that's what was so confusing to her. She's just a fraud. Okay, so now, if you check when I sent my letter off to, in August 5th, 2020, I sent my letter off to this group of people saying, I got you. And I said, you will yield now or I will strap a collar on your neck and parade you through the streets howling. And then I said, Aru, right? And I said, it's all metaphors. It's nothing physical or anything like that. But you'll also see back in the entire review, I did state that I was doing this through animal behavior and made that very clear. So that's the way that I would be responding to this case. Because I think it was really important to explain it because of the high-level people that are involved, that it makes people act more like animals than they do reasonable, rational creatures, right? They act based more off of the dominance than they do based off of rationality and reason, which is actually extremely effective and extremely accurate, almost spookily, and I'm sure they think the same thing. Anyways, I digress on that point. So anyway, I send this off on August 5th, 2020. The next day, August 6th, 2020, Stephen McNeil resigns. And everybody was shocked, and he had only told the caucus earlier in the day. Okay, so jump forward 1 year to July 26, 2021, and I brought this out to the large DL, and it was an open letter stating something really bad happened. I brought it out to different media organizations and all the political parties and asked for somebody to please contact me to resolve this, that something bad had happened. Then in August, just like several days later, a year from the date McNeil resigned, again, I sent it out even broader to try to get assistance on it. And you'll see that's, now following this disclosure period of these year-long increments. And you will note that I did absolutely requested someone to contact me so it didn't get to this point. Like I begged them to, please don't make me do this. So then jump forward a year later, right? You're in August 2022. Now, August 2nd, 2022 is when I was falsely arrested by Halifax Regional Police and then defamed, slandered, and tortured by Nova Scotia Health Authority. Right? So now you see the consistency. 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. Right? Disclosure periods, giving these parties more than enough time, a reasonable amount of time to respond and to actually take some sort of action instead of retaliation. Okay. So now, note the date of the recorded interaction when Kristen Holm she chose to admit me based off of her shit and piss, right? It was August 5th, 2022. That's right. 2 years to the day that I had sent the letter to Stephen McNeil. What amazing consistency, wouldn't you say? Right? But this gets even better because that's not even the big point I'm going to make here because we want to focus mostly on the Easter egg. So, when you're admitted to a place like that, they get you to record names of people who can call and ask X, Y, and Z about you, right? You can check off X, Y, or Z. Now, I only listed 3 people, and one of them was David Fraser, a very well-known privacy lawyer, one of Canada's best privacy lawyers. And basically he could ask anything about me. Right? And I did it for this moment right here. And you'll see why. So, I only read 1 book during that period, and it was Moby Dick. Well, I made sure that Kristen Holm seen me reading that book for this very moment. Now, Moby Dick was used as a reference this is like a pop culture Easter egg, so that technologists or anybody would realize that what I'm talking about and be like, okay, I see it, yeah, okay. This guy was really consistent. So it was referenced in, first off, Star Trek Next Generation in like movies when they talked to Khan, but also when it was like when the Borg had come back, I think, to come after Cochrane, so they didn't make the warp drive or something like that. But anyways, the point was that it was about Borg and stuff, which was AI, and Kristen Holm was basically torturing me, and I thought in my mind, I was like the episode where they tortured Picard about the 5 lights, and there was only 4 lights, right? Like, just a funny joke. But what's important here is in the books, Moby Dick, which was the book that I was reading, there's a character, Starbuck. And Starbuck is a character in Battlestar Galactica. Right? And you'll see why this is important, because you actually see multiple Easter eggs associated with this, because I did do reviews on artificial intelligence, right? And I'm fully aware, obviously, sci-fi, but it's a fun topic. How else am I going to culturally relate this to people in some sort of sense that they would know how consistent I am? All right, so in Battlestar Galactica, there's a point in which the Pegasus shows up, which is another Battlestar, but it's called Battlestar Pegasus. I mean, this won't be Battlestar Galactica. And Battlestar Galactica represents democracy, where they tried to keep that idea, and they didn't want to give that up out of humanity. Pegasus, on the other hand, just gave that up completely, right? Like dictator, authoritarian, like super scary stuff, right? Like stripped the other ships down, murdered people, sent them off to be slaughtered, and like it was really, really spooky. And now this ship shows up. And what's important about this here is now we need to jump back to how my GPS got set to 9330 Highway 7, Stillwater, Nova Scotia. Right? Now, any technologist or security apparatus is going to tell you that is spyware. Right? So now you've got these topics we're talking about, spyware and Pegasus. What is the biggest well-known version of spyware that's out there? Pegasus. Developed by NSO Group. And right? Now, in fact, that was actually used against some Canadians. And there was a serious with Jamal Kagoshi. But then the company, or like Citizen Lab, I guess, who was investigating it, were being followed by certain individuals that were related to these companies back in early 2019, late 2018. Now, why this is important is if you look at the same period that I was locked up at Mount Hope, RCMP decided to do their inquiry into spyware, where they were specifically and repeatedly asked about Pegasus. Right? And guess who was on the news talking about spyware and Pegasus? David Fraser. You see the consistency, everybody? It's an incredible level of consistency. Right? Because an Easter egg like this had to exist, because it never mattered what I said or did with Kristen Holmes. She was always going to lie, cheat, and steal. She was always going to do that. It never mattered what I did. Right? And this is what's important, because you'll also note that I kept referencing a quote. And here's what I did, is every January 6th, from January 6, 2022, January 6, 2023, and January 6, 2024. Understand this. Hopefully you understand this. All of this has happened before, but the question remains, does all of this have to happen again? This time I bet no. You know, I've never known you to play the optimist. Why the change of heart? Mathematics. Law of averages. Let a complex system repeat itself long enough and eventually something surprising might occur. That too is in God's plan. You know, it doesn't like that name. Silly me. Silly, silly me. Right? It's to state that I can't know for sure what's going to happen, but I can state on the large average that I know exactly what kind of a monster and fraud Kristen Holmes is. It's not really that complicated when it comes to her. The rest of the system's a little bit more complicated, but I knew how petty and pathetic she would be about this. Right? And she was always going to claim to be the victim. Life's so hard. Boo-hoo-hoo. And she always had control over it, and that's what those kind of people do. Right? And it's to show what she was. Who was she in that situation? Was Kristen Holmes the Pegasus, or was she the Galactica? She was the Pegasus, that monster. Right? And she was just helping everybody live their best life, and there was no other way to go about it. Right? Violent, delusional, predatory instincts. You do what you should have seen. Right? Kristen Holmes is a sociopath matching that exact type of ideology, right? And she had no lens to see it. She couldn't see it. She's just a hero, right? She knew she would have to file a complaint against the police, and she knew this. She's more intelligent enough. It's why she made the specific omissions that she did, right? And I was never going to win against a monster like that unless there were Easter eggs. All right, but to add even more consistency to the quote, earlier in the day I had gone down to CSIS and given them evidence before I'd gone anywhere else, and I gave it to them in a wallet tin. Now that was the wallet tin of the very wallet that they would then send with my book bag that night with a sketched out homeless man self-admittedly on drugs. Well, they put a giant sticker on it with Scott, right? Again, so my book bag was reasonably involved in another theft or a massive privacy breach, just like what happened before. But here's the other thing. If you look at the premise of a lot of this, I had questions and was down to HRP bringing up points about my wallet in 2019, and we never got past there because they just arrested me. And then what did Kristen Holm do when she got to the wallet? She just stopped at it and did the exact same thing. That's right. She became fixated. They became fixated. That's right. All of that has happened before. The question remains, does all of that have to happen again? While you'll notice the college is again lying about my wallet. Right? Look at it. Hung up on that issue 3-4 times. They're still lying, cheating, and stealing about it while they claim no, they would never do anything like that. Right? It's to show that these systems are predictable and these kinds of monsters are predictable. And who are they blaming? Me and everybody else except themselves. Right? It's systemic failure. Right? And that's why these groups of people have been attacked and harassed for so long, because it doesn't matter about facts, evidence, or human dignity. Right? It matters that these people are such cowards and failures that they can't face the monsters looking them back in the mirror every morning. So everybody else has to pay the price for it. Right? It's not facts, evidence, human dignity, or rights, or anything like that. It's literally whatever they can do and whatever they can use and abuse for them to pretend they are just heroes helping everybody live their best lives. And it's disgusting, but that's the state of it, right? Well, we really then need to relate this back to what's, referred to as the Stanford prison study, right? Now, I've got all this massive amount of evidence. I've got all these facts all laid out. There are, like, a lot of witnesses. I am a technical expert. Right, you can see all of these Easter eggs and everything. Now, here's the college being presented with all of this, and literally they're saying, well, if it was that bad, somebody would have stopped it, so you must just be retarded. Right, think about that in terms of the Stanford prison study. What would be enough to make these monsters stop? There is never enough, because I'm just a piece of trash, and the right kind of white needs to tell them that I'm not. No matter the facts or the evidence, the Easter eggs, none of it. Right? I am simply not the right kind of white, and that's the idea of the Stanford prison study. And look at these monsters. Look at them lying, cheating, stealing, blaming everybody else, even when the evidence is right there in their face. Yeah. And that's why I was able to walk through it the way that I did. Right? You just had to let them people fail themselves. And they did. I didn't do anything. Basic literacy skill shows it. Right? Because that's who they are as people. I didn't do that to them. They chose it. Right? They chose to be like that. They are the disease in the system, right? That's what they don't want to face, right? The reality of it. They're better off living in their delusional world where they're just heroes helping everybody live their best life, and everybody else is too stupid to see what's going on. Here it is all in writing. I think I see it pretty clearly. But that's life. Right? So just think about what I said. Watch this a couple times. It's an incredible level of consistency on top of all the evidence I'm sitting there with. Right? So, I hope that serves as an interesting Easter egg. I find it absolutely fascinating. There were several Easter eggs spread throughout, but this one with Kristen Holm is especially important because she is such a violent criminal offender. She is a predator, and that monster will absolutely retaliate again. It doesn't matter what evidence she is presented with. Her only option is to retaliate because she's a fraud. And she knows that, and she knows she's exposed. So what happens when a narcissist and a sociopath know they're exposed? You know that woman will do horrible things she never even thought she would do, and she's already tried to do it. All right, Canada and everybody, thank you very much for listening. I can explain this part of it further. Hopefully I did a good job and everybody gets it. But other than that, thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.